Hi, I'm Dan Obashan. Welcome back to the joy of tennis teaching. Last week we talked about the forehand, and this week we're going to talk about the backhand. With the backhand, what you have to understand is there are two completely different types of backhands, and we're going to talk about how to teach both. But this week we're not going to really get into a big debate about which one is better or who should hit what type of backhand. We're just going to talk about teaching the two backhands. Backhand number one is the one-handed backhand. The one-handed backhand is just like we talk about with the name. It implies you go with one arm. Your body stays perpendicular to the net. Your swing is bent to straight, and you go through. It's a very pretty looking, very elegant shot, very free flowing. But the reason that most club players don't have good backhands, and the reason that a lot of teaching pros don't teach the one-hand backhand anymore, I believe it's because of the grip. With the forehand last week, we talked about you can get away with a full Western, a semi-Western, even an Eastern or continental grip. There's a lot of grips that you can make work for a forehand. For the backhand, there's really only one grip that works on the one-hand backhand, and that's the Eastern backhand grip. Your hand is on top of the handle. Your thumb is wrapped around the back of the handle. You've got a very firm grip on top, and this gives you the most leverage and allows your forearm to not be stressed out. If you try to hit a one-hand backhand with a forehand grip, it puts your wrist in an awkward position and you'll hurt yourself. This is why most people don't like their backhand, because they don't have the control. We do so many more things with the forehand. I taught myself how to play with a grip that was in between a forehand and backhand, kind of a modified continental grip. And it was good for some things, but it really wasn't good for the ground strokes. And I grew up hitting only underspin or backspin backhands. And in order to learn the topspin backhand, I knew I needed to improve my grip. I heard this from every coach who saw me play in high school and college. But I knew what the grip was, I just could never find it in the game. If I hit one forehand and then I went back, I could not find the grip in time. And then I met Peter Burwash, and he showed me the magic of the opposite hand. For me as a right-handed player, this is my left hand. I hold the racket up at the throat of the racket to control the weight of the racket. I hold it in the fingertips. I have my index finger touching the strings so I can feel what the angle of the racket is. We talked about that a little bit last week on closing the racket for the forehand. But the real magic of this for me was being able to change from the forehand grip to the backhand grip. I could now hit backhands. It was magic. I couldn't believe how much better Peter had me hitting backhands in 5 minutes. And you have to understand how amazing this was, because I had spent the previous 8 years since I started playing tennis trying to improve and get a topspin backhand, but I couldn't do it. Every coach who saw me play said, you need to change your grip for a backhand, but I couldn't do it. And here Peter was with this magical left hand thing, and I'm hitting great backhands. Later that afternoon, I hit with a PBI pro named Ted Murray, who was a great coach and a senior pro to me and was helping us training, and Ted and I were hitting, and I said, see, that left hand thing Peter showed me isn't working anymore. And Ted said, well, no, the left hand works, you're just not doing it. My hand had slid down and I had lost the feeling of getting that good grip. So today, except for the serve, I probably like hitting the one-hand backhand as much as any shot. And it was the shot that I hated when I was a young competitive player, because I didn't have that grip. So if you're going to teach the one-hand backhand, it's real easy. teach the grip change. I had a student, Lorna, that was a complete beginning student, and in her very first lesson, I taught her the grip change, and I taught her how to hit forehands and backhands at the same time. And later on, when Lorna was playing a little bit, she invited a much more experienced player to join her in her morning lessons. And I knew this woman as well, and this woman was so mad because Lorna hit a better backhand than she did, and she had been playing tennis for 25 years. And she kept going back and forth between a two-hander and a one-hander. But Lorna had a beautiful one-hand backhand because her very first lesson, we taught the grip change. So that's it for teaching the one-hand backhand. Now, what about the two-hand backhand? Two-hand backhand, you see a lot of the pros on TV hitting it. You'll see little kids hitting it. You coaches, you probably hit it when you were starting playing because you're all younger. So the secret to the two-hand backhand is really very, very simple. It's a forehand with the left hand if you're a righty player. It's the top hand is the dominant hand. The top hand does the work. In fact, the best way to teach this is get your students in a comfortable grip. There's a lot of grips you can use for this, but the most common two-hand backhand is two Eastern grips. So I think you can see that. And then get them in position, have them take the dominant hand off the racket and practice hitting non-dominant forehands with a short grip. If you do this, it's guaranteed to improve any two-hand backhand. The other thing I want to talk about the two-hand backhand is, and this is the big difference between the one and the two, is when you hit the two, you have to rotate your shoulders and body. It's a little tough to do in the wheelchair, but you must make sure that you're getting that full body rotation the same as on a forehand. That's what makes a two-hander great. Many years ago, we did this little experiment with a radar gun and a net at the Sheraton Townhouse Hotel in Los Angeles. We dropped balls and we had a bunch of different good players try hitting one-hand backhands, two-hand backhands, one-hand forehands, and two-hand forehands into a net with a radar gun. And do you know that the fastest shot into the radar gun was the one-hand backhand? There's plenty of power from the shoulder. The reason most people think that the two-hand backhand, and they're right about the forehand, are more powerful, is there's a difference between usable power and wild power. So one-hand backhand, a backhand punch in boxing is illegal. There's plenty of power in it, but the problem is controlling it. The two-hand backhand, because of that top hand, they've got more usable, controllable power. And that's why most good players, their forehand is their most powerful shot, again, because it's usable power. So that's it for the backhand. Next week we'll get into it a little bit deeper on the differences and who should learn which one. But before I finish, I want to just say that yesterday the US Open began, the biggest tournament in the world, the biggest stadium in the world, the biggest crowds, the most money, and it's going to be on TV, so I hope you enjoy watching it. This hat that I have on is a US Open hat from the 2020 US Open, the COVID Open. And thank you, Marcela Fonseca, who are giving me this hat. Marcela was working at that tournament, so she had an unforgettable experience and probably what'll be the most unusual US Open ever. So I hope you enjoyed today's talk about the backhand. Go out there and be joyful.